Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Jennifer Sapala, and I'm part of the customer success team here at Unitrends. With me today is Mo Al-Shafi, our Director of Sales Engineering, who will be leading today's presentation, the 7 devastating mistakes Unitrends customers almost made. But before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. We anticipate the session to run less than 60 minutes. But if you have to jump off a little bit early, it will be recorded and forwarded to you once it's available from WebEx. This usually takes about 24 hours for us to get it, and then we'll turn it around to you. Since we are expecting around 500 customers attending today's webinar, all lines have been muted. And to be respectful of everyone's time, we're not going to do a live Q&A today, but instead we're going to ask that you enter your questions into the chat box, and we will follow up with you personally, either an engineer or your account manager, depending on your question. So please feel free to ask questions throughout the session, and we will get back to you. And lastly, as a thank you for attending today's webinar live, we will be sending each attendee a $5 Amazon gift card via email. So look for that within the next 7 days. So with all that said, I would like to turn it over to Mo.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks everybody for joining today's session about the 7 devastating mistakes Unitrends customers almost made. Jen, can you hear me before I go on and nobody can hear me?
I can hear you, Mo.
Awesome. So, guys, what we put together for today's session is a few stories from our customers who almost made some mistakes because they had maybe a little bit of lack of knowledge about some of the things and the innovations that Unitrends has been up to as of some recent history. And we thought, you know what, it would be a great way for us to inform our existing customer base through some marketing efforts, through webinars like this, about some of the great things that we have been up to as a product to inform you about it. So please, by any means, if any of this pertains to you or you find it interesting, please reach out, as Jen said, to your account managers who will be able to get you connected with our engineers. I lead the sales engineering team here at Unitrends, and we'd be more than glad to assist to get you up to speed on any of these products and features that we've put together. So let's get started with the first one. And a lot of these are going to be quotes that I liked that we got from our customers. Scott S., for example, almost forgot to protect Office 365. More and more adoption is seen of organizations going the Office 365 route for their email, for things like SharePoint, for things like OneDrive, and it's almost like backing up that data seems like an afterthought. And it's not until folks lose data in the cloud, which according to recent research, 32% of organizations at least are experiencing data loss from the cloud for this type of stuff, realize that, hey, you know what, I need protection, and is Unitrends going to be able to help me achieve this? Well, the good news is that Unitrends is uniquely positioned for Office 365 protection, and what a lot of folks don't realize is that your data that runs in Office 365 is running in a separate cloud than where your Azure would reside in. So what we've done is we have a service that is able to take your data from Office 365 Cloud and store it into Azure forever. And not only is it doing the backups, but it takes up to 6 snapshots per day. It's very easy to install and onboard customers. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes. A couple of login accounts. You get to work with our onboarding engineers, and from setup to seeing things take action is a few minutes. Lost emails are restored in just a few clicks. Again, it's unlimited retention. This is a service that we provide for Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive that just automatically takes that worry away that is my data backed up for the Office 365 that I just spent so much time and effort migrating into, and it's a subscription-based model that you pay on a per-user instance for, and everything that we talk about today, by the way, has a online reference to it with frequently asked questions that we put together for all of these services. So just to kind of show you what the UI for this looks like, under Cloud Manager for Cloud Backup, you can see where I'm protecting the Exchange, the SharePoint, mailboxes. You could choose what users you want to have protected. Your licensing is based, again, on the users that you choose to have protected, where you can restore mail items, contacts, calendar items, tasks, and again, for the Cloud Backup for Office 365, a lot of the frequently asked questions that customers have about how does this work, how is it licensed, how many users can I protect, how frequently, all of this information is shared right on our website. And again, if you would like more information about that, let us know. This is something we're very excited about having to offer to our user base, as well as new users. Again, without having protection for that, just having it in the cloud does not mean that it is protected. So let us know if you have interest in this, and if you'd like to have more information about that, that we can help out with. The other story that I'd like to share with everybody is a user that had long-term retention requirements, Craig, and he was doing it to his tape system. Well, we talked to a lot of folks who either have requirements to stay with sneaker netting, I'll say, their data onto removable media, whether it be tape or other means. But for a lot of organizations that need long-term retention, there are alternatives available that we'd like to bring to our customers' attention. Unitrends has rolled out something called Forever Cloud. For those of you who didn't realize, Unitrends has its own cloud real estate across North America, but also across the globe in places like Europe. We have a few locations in Europe. Germany, for example, their data can't leave Germany. We have cloud locations in Asia Pac, places like Australia, that enable our customers to offsite their backups into a cloud-type topology where you can get your data offsite in an automated fashion that also checks the boxes of, you know what, I don't want to leave anything to the chance of human error. I want to have long-term retention in a set-it-and-forget-it way that lets me take my data offsite into the cloud. And then another story that I'm going to wrap into this is Matt, who said they almost crushed their budget on cloud disaster recovery because, again, they didn't realize that their Unitrends solution had a cloud component to it, and they were out looking for cloud options. And before they knew it, they had 6 different quotes to be able to do what we can do with one product. The cloud provider was going to be something else from who performed disaster recovery for them, was going to be something else from who would do long-term retention for them. And what Unitrends does is provide that cloud service in a tiered cloud structure. Our Forever Cloud is structured in a way where you can choose and pick what subset of your data in 500 gigabyte increments for being off-sited into our cloud. And again, these cloud sites are geo-redundant that span coast to coast for North America and worldwide. But the nice thing about this is not only does it check off the box of I need to get my data somewhere else, but I also need it retained for long term. So we sat down and thought about this and listened to our customers and prospects about what type of retention requirements they have. And using a GFS, grandfather, father, son type retention policies, we wanted to make sure that we can accommodate customers who are in different sectors across a wide spectrum, whether it's healthcare, government, education, energy, and the retention periods that we have range anywhere from, as you can see here, 90 days, 1 to 7 years, and then there's an infinite option that also allows you to keep your data retained forever. What's nice about this is you could think of our cloud options as a tiered/layered approach, where the first layer is getting the data that you're backing up locally on your local appliance into the cloud, and then the next layer is retaining it for that period of time. But then the other layer that's also interesting is wrapping this up into a DR story, which is pretty unique to Unitrends, in that we thought, hey, since we have the customer data already, why not put it into play for the customer for a DR type situation? So we offer disaster recovery as a service in a pretty nice tiered approach where you can do unlimited, or you could do it in an a la carte type of arrangement to fulfill the need that you have. Just because you have a couple hundred servers that you're protecting doesn't mean that you want to send all of it to the cloud, but it also doesn't mean that all of what you send to the cloud is something you want to see spun up. So we make it flexible enough for the customer to pick and choose and structure their DR story based on what they need for getting the data offsited into the cloud. So disaster recovery as a service is that next layer tier, if you will, that allows you to get your data that you're sending into our cloud anyway to be positioned in a way where it can be spun up for immediate recovery if you need it in case of an unfortunate disaster. So we have 1 hour SLAs available with our premium disaster recovery as a service. But what's also great about our offering, and it's something that has given us the recognition and positioned Unitrends as the only solution that's on both Magic Quadrants with Gartner on local backup and disaster recovery as a service, is the ability to achieve that long-term retention, choosing the retention window, adding disaster recovery as a service. But what's great about the offering and the solution that we have is a way for our customers to have an automated way to test what is being sent up into the cloud. And what I mean by this is Unitrends uses its unique recovery assurance technology that users can use on-premise, by the way, and this is going to be another story that we talk about. But we use that same technology within the cloud, where Unitrends is automatically testing the failover of the servers that our customers replicate into our cloud. And we're proactively recording the objectives for recovery point and recovery time and putting that into actuals for our customers to see how well they are prepared for their disaster. We furnish our customers with ongoing, regularly sent reports that show compliance and how well you are ready for when the disaster strikes, if it does strike. This is a component that is sorely missing from today's IT environments, is the recovery assurance and really getting to the bottom of, am I ready for a disaster? Should I experience it? How long can I be down? How much data can I afford to lose? And Unitrends makes sure that we have answers to those questions. This used to historically be 3, 4, 5 different products that you had to do to be able to do this, that we've been able to wrap into one with our offering. What's great about the testing with the recovery assurance that we do, we don't do what some of our competitors do and just show you a snapshot of the login screen. A snapshot of the login screen is only the beginning of the story. Our recovery assurance automated testing is so comprehensive that once a machine is spun up, we can inject specific tests, whether it's a script or a query or a ping of a service, that really tests the functionality of the service that is spun up and not just whether or not it booted up. A machine that's been hit with, say, ransomware will boot up just fine. You will still get a login screen. But it's not until you run specific tests to really check the health of that machine do you know that that machine can actually be used in a disastrous situation. Not only that, but it has the orchestration piece that lets you do things like validate the boot priority and the orchestration of a disaster from when that happens. So at this point, you may be wondering, how is this possible? This must take a lot of work to be able to really identify the components that are needed for this. And you're absolutely right. When you work with Unitrends, the beauty of having a vendor like Unitrends who has their own cloud real estate, who has their engineering workforce, allows us to offer this white glove service that allows our engineers and our customers to work hand in hand to build out what we call a disaster recovery prep kit. And this is where we identify all the critical and important components to ensuring the success of this operation, making sure that we capture all the information, boot priorities, how things need to be orchestrated, network information, to make sure that when we run a disaster recovery, we execute exactly how the customer expects it to be. From a topology standpoint, from a simplistic diagram here, when an outage happens at a customer site, we're utilizing our instant recovery capabilities to quickly recover the jobs into our production-grade infrastructure that is running in our cloud, utilizing VMware, Hyper-V, Windows technologies to make sure that we're capable of running the environment exactly as it would perform on premises. But not only that, once that information is now spun up, we get the customer connected into what's now running in the cloud, and as those users are making changes to that data, we're constantly backing it up to ensure that we capture all the changes so that when the failback mechanism needs to happen, we're able to send the latest and greatest copy of the data back to the customer, not being at the mercy of bandwidth and slow networks, but we're actually able to ship that data back and then reverse replicate that data to the customer so that you can get your latest and greatest copy with minimal loss of data and minimal outage for you to operate that data when it's running back on premises. So that's a great component that we have within our solution set that combines making sure that the data is off-sited in an automated fashion. It checks, again, the box of long-term retention so that you don't have to keep doing that on local media that you may or may not have, that may be aging, that maybe you want to get away from the business of rotating media like tape. This is a nice way to get that in a set-it-and-forget-it way, but also get regular reporting that tell you how things are doing within the cloud for disaster recovery. Knowing that things can't recover from an old media is a bad time to find that out when you're, in the heat of the moment looking to restore something with everybody breathing down your neck. Not only that, but we've extended this capability to be able to restore right from the user interface that we'll take a look at here in just a bit. The next story here that I want to share with you is a great one. It was a customer who was hit with ransomware, and they actually almost paid the ransom. We've actually had a few customers that unfortunately were hit with this, and they are very grateful that they actually had Unitrends running in their environment. And what Unitrends is doing in terms of preparedness for things like ransomware are pretty unique. A lot of the data protection solutions in the market today talk about what you see on the outer edges of my arrow here, the protection and recovery. Anybody can do those, right, if you have a solution in place to do it. But there's a lot that goes on in the middle that goes unnoticed and not oftentimes paid attention to. Secure, test, and detect. What we've incorporated into the solution is at the heart of it, Unitrends runs as a Linux-based operating system that is a hardened Linux appliance that is far less susceptible to malware attacks than its Windows counterparts. A lot of our competitors do run their solution on Windows, and what we're seeing is a very clever approach from malware attacks, where we see a lot of variants actually go after your backups. They realize that this is your best line of defense, and they're deleting your backups. This is how they ensure they get paid the ransom money. And so what Unitrends does to mitigate that is we run on Linux. It's a hardened Linux appliance, obviously, that, the chances of having your backups deleted are pretty much non-existent. So that's the approach we took to making sure that the solution is secured. The often ignored testing is, and I speak to a lot of customers, and I always ask the question, and I make it a point to ask the question, how often do you test your backups? How often are you testing the data that you're sending to a cloud provider? And the answer ranges anywhere from never to maybe once a year if we get around to it. And those customers that have been hit with ransomware, when I ask the question of how long did it take you to detect it, the question is when it was too late. Okay, when you did detect it, what approach did you take? And there just seems to be a lacking capability out there for making sure your backup solution is hardened and secured against these things. So what we've incorporated in our 9.2 release that was out a few months ago is a form of artificial intelligence where the appliance, basically to detect ransomware attacks, it learns the normal patterns within your environment from backups. And so when ransomware hits your environment, what does it do? It encrypts data, and on the next incremental job that we run, we notice a spike in what used to be a normal change rate for the environment. And the threshold of those changes can be set by the user. So as soon as anomalous behavior is detected within the environment from something like a ransomware attack, we immediately flag that as a potential threat that is attacking the environment. So immediately what you would see within your Unitrends UI is the ransomware icon, I'll say, the skull, and one of the alerts that your solution will give you is that our predictive analytic engine, the engine that is continuously learning what is normal and picks up on anomalies, is now finding that there is suspicious activity being done on your network. And it identifies it down to the machine that is experiencing those change rates within the environment so that you're not the last to know about this. These alerts are also emailed out to you so that you're not the last to know about this. But what's also been revealing from the research that we've done on ransomware attacks, we interview our customers who've been hit with it, and that is, what's been the most painful part about recovering from ransomware. And what's often painful is, no matter what solution they're using, is spending the time looking for that last known good backup from which data can be recovered. So keep that in mind for another point that we're going to bring up here about the importance of the testing component that we have within the appliance. The next story here from Joanne is, this is an existing customer, like a lot of you are, and he didn't realize that Unitrends has switched its, or not switched, I should say, updated its deduplication technology to utilize things like solid-state drives, as well as an inline deduplication technology, as opposed to the post-process deduplication technology that we used to use. And what that's enabled us to do is a lot of things better. And long story short, we're able to be more efficient with storage consumption, right? With inline deduplication, allowing us to align the blocks of data using variable block length from 4K to 1 meg, allows us to be able to be more efficient with storage consumption, which on the other hand, on the other side of things, leads to allowing us to get more density out of our appliances with some of this innovation that we're doing, and also retain more backups, having longer retention on a given box. So if you go out and look at our appliance models on our website, we now have a suggested backup column for each appliance model that tells you how much data you can protect, uncompressed, undeduped, and still yield a 30-day retention on that particular appliance model. So what for the same amount of data, historically with the post-process dedupe, because it needed to have the landing zone that you no longer need, you're now able to fit more backups on lesser storage than had we been using the post-process dedupe. So, for those of you upgrading your current appliances, make sure you ask about that, and we'll help you understand it. And make sure that you're obviously fitting into the appliance model that's going to give you the retention period that you need out of your solution. Spoke to Jason, and as part of their disaster recovery testing, they actually have private cloud, so they send data from one site to another. And their DR location is a few states away, almost halfway across the country for them. And what they did every year was fly out their IT crew to the DR site to do manual DR testing. And what they didn't realize that the solution had was an aspect of that recovery assurance that we talked about earlier. What recovery assurance does is provide for an automated way to test your backups for DR testing into sandbox networks, into completely separate environments, again, testing the components within the machines to make sure that not only can those servers boot up, but that they boot up functioning. They didn't realize that recovery assurance meant that I can test my backups locally in an ongoing basis without me having to babysit it, but I can also do the same tests. Just like we do in our cloud for our customers, they can actually do this at their second site from their replicated appliance into standby DR environments that still do their recording of recovery point and recovery time objectives and provide compliance reports that show readiness for recovery time and recovery point of the machines that they set up with the Replica extension that tells you all the last details on IP address information, how long did it take to recover it, and it's a pretty detailed process that lets you proactively detect any issues that may take place within your DR testing. And so this is something that we've incorporated into the product that allows you to perform this recovery assurance, but also we put a big tile for this right into the dashboard of the appliance interface. And I know some of the folks that are on this webinar may still be using our legacy UI, so a lot of these enhancements are being done into the new UI. So there's something to be said about, considering switching to using this new UI in which all of these capabilities are developed for. So from that, you're able to quickly, under the Protect tab, go into Data Copy Access, which is a 4-step wizard that takes you through your backups that you've already captured, let you identify the machines, physical or virtual, that you want to test, and orchestrate how, where, how often that they recover, allowing you to have an answer of, well, how often are you testing your backups today? Allowing you to specify goals for recovery point and recovery times that then gives you the ability to define that scheduled approach, doing it as frequently as needed, and then defining the orchestration piece for how this stuff gets recovered. So for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 servers in this job, I can specify the boot priorities of each of those. Think of your n-tiered applications where certain servers need to come up before others, but maybe there's a specific component that you want to test within that server to ensure that it comes up cleanly, because server 7 depended on server 2 to come up. If server 2 doesn't come up and that specific component isn't working, what's the point in going through the rest of the test? But what's also cool is the ability to reconfigure horsepower on those machines, being able to re-IP these servers when you are doing your test. A lot of other solutions either don't have this or they require very complicated scripts to be able to do this functionality that we've added right within the UI here. And then those tests that you can add range anywhere from your own custom script that you can have that maybe checks for encrypted data where you never intended for it to be encrypted, hence that would flag a ransomware attack, to exchange services, queries for databases, services that need to be checked for functionality. So this is a cool thing that we're talking about here that lets you really check the health of the machine, that it can actually come up when it needed to come up, how it needs to come up, and it's basically using your most recent backups to do this testing to give you a certified recovery point that you know can be put to your advantage to work for you, again, when you need it the most. So a lot of these capabilities are put into place so that at the end of the day, you can get the results of your testing that show you how well you're able to meet those recoveries, but also give you the unique steps that it took to get to that point and make sure that you're able to recover from that. That concludes all the stories that I wanted to share. Obviously, there's a lot to take in, from our cloud services to Office 365 to being able to recover assure yourself, we'll call it, making sure that you have that confidence within your backups that those can actually be recovered, because we're doing the orchestration and testing of that. But that's not only on premises, but also in the cloud. So we definitely wanted to give you a high-level overview of those innovations that we've been doing with the product, and hopefully that starts some interest for you to follow up with us and check out some of the special Q4 promotions that we still have available through the end of the year. So again, there's the email if you have interest in following up more. Of course, you can also work with your partner to get more details on the things we discussed today.
Thanks, Mo, for walking us through the 7 devastating mistakes, and thanks for everyone who attended. We hope you did find this material valuable. As Mo said, talking about promotions, I wanted to let you know, if you aren't subscribed to our newsletter, that we do have a number of customer-exclusive promotions going on right now. Everything from a free hardware option for those on legacy appliances, as well as savings basically across the board if you're looking to expand your footprint, whether to the cloud, on-site, or otherwise. And we're finding these promos are really helping customers in 2 ways. So first, if any of you are lucky enough to have excess budget still remaining, one safe bet is your data is going to grow next year. So we're able to provide a lot of customers right now options to use that budget wisely. And the second way is we're finding customers coming to us now saying, you know, this is great, but I'm doing my 2018 budget planning right now. And we've been able to find some creative ways to take advantage of these promotions for budget they have coming up in January. So just something to think about there. So if you'd like to learn more, whether about a product, functionality, or the promotions, please do connect with your preferred Unitrends partner or your account manager. If you aren't sure who that is, not a problem. You can always shoot us an email at info@unitrends.com. That email will get to the right person and we'll connect you with your account manager. So thanks again for attending today's session. We are capturing all of the chats and Q&A questions that have come in. If it wasn't answered during the session, we will follow up with you after the webinar. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.